Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today on War Thunder, it is time to have a look at the last devblog for the Battlefield Engineer vehicles. These devblogs have been coming thick and fast when it comes to War Thunder, which to me symbols that this Battlefield Engineer event is pretty close to happening. This is the last one of the 6 that we've had, so now we have all of the confirmed vehicles. You know, we have the project vehicle from the Soviets, we have the Tiger class, we have the HMS Tiger. Then we have, of course, the VFW in this devblog, the I-180S, the Ju-388J, and of course the Merkava. So everything is confirmed now, and I just want to say well done to the community as a whole for working these out so quickly. Obviously, the Ju-388V2 was the one which was seen as, you know, the vehicle which was on offer when, you know, now it's the J. But to be honest, the V2 is the prototype of the J. So, you know, it was very, very close. And on top of it, obviously, the only thing that was, well, not really confusing, but needed to be worked out, was which version of this AA were we going to get for the Germans. They made 2 versions of this AA, you know, one with the slightly different 88 to the other one, therefore it is just working out, you know, which one we were going to get. So it looks like we have at least one of them out of the 2, and plus we have all of the key design decisions, such as the different wheels, such as the slightly different chassis, and overall it is looking really lovely from that point of view. And you can see that it has full gun elevation, meaning that this is not just going to be good from a tank destroyer perspective. This is also going to be good from a AA perspective, which was actually designed for. So one of the key things that I want to point out with the VFW is we have pictures of it where its sides are up, as you can see here, and then we have pictures of it where its sides are down. Now, I'm personally wondering how this is going to work. Is there going to be a button, which means that you can actually put the sides down, or will it just happen automatically if you settle in one area at one time? And to be honest, it's going to be impossible to know unless they mention it, you know, at some point. It does say you can raise the armored boards by choosing the appropriate modification in the hangar. This will increase the crew protection, but will deprive the vehicle of the ability to conduct circular fire. So if you change modification on this thing, you'll be able to increase, you know, crew protection, which is obviously not a lot of armor at all, but at least you can do it. But what does that mean? Does that mean, I'm guessing, you know, the most literal interpretation of this is that there is a modification in your modifications tab which raises the armor. Would it be similar to like add-on armor? Or what about the idea of in-game eventually, where we have a button which just raises and lowers it? Maybe that's slightly unrealistic because it would take a decent amount of time to be able to raise it and lower it. But overall, I think that would be a better option than it just being something to pick before the battle. Something that I generally have a problem with, especially when it comes to add-on armor, or especially when it comes to something that affects the performance of a vehicle, is the fact that if I'm choosing it before the battle, you know, instead of during the battle, or, sorry, not before the battle, but if I'm choosing it in the hangar instead of before I get into the battle or during the battle, you know, if I have another spawn, then I can't really adapt to the situation. Like, what if I get a map in the VFW where it's very limited corridors and I want to sit on one of those corridors? So Finland would be a great example. But in the hangar, I've set it to, you know, I want to be open because I want that 360 degrees, because the majority of the time this is going to benefit me over this one here. Now, unfortunately, because if it happens, you know, in the hangar, then I can't make that choice for Finland at that time, because there seems to be a little bit of movement, you know, straightforward that you can shoot at. So, even on direct streets, such as, advance to the Rhine, maybe if I want to go on the east line and just kind of sit there, I would want to have the sides up, but on the majority of places, I would want to have them down for that versatility. So, it's not, if you just keep it in the hangar, it's not, I don't personally think it's the best status. One of the things which is nice is that its premium status has been acknowledged. So the VFW does have premium status of rank 3, so this is seen as better than the battle bus, which is the other 88 that the Germans have. I'm guessing that's just because of its speed compared to the battle bus, and also the fact that it's tracked, which in this game means that on the majority of maps, it will handle more similarly than it will if it is wheeled. Now, the other thing is, will this machine get hull broken? Now, hull break is an interesting mechanic right now. There is definitely vehicles which I would say should be getting a bit more hull broken compared to before. If you don't know, they just changed it a lot for a bunch of lighter armored vehicles, where instead of just killing one key component, you have to do a certain amount of sufficient damage to it. And the VFW looks to me as a machine that's going to have this certain damage idea, or it's going to have like a knockout a key component idea, such as the breach. And the reason for this is because the chassis as a whole, if you take away, this little bit up here, this is pretty much a medium tank chassis. And even though it is slightly different to a Panzer III's and Panzer IV's, I'm sure it would offer at least similar armor to it. So therefore, I highly doubt that itself would get hull broken. Another thing that isn't mentioned in this devblog, which was very key for the other battle, as I said, the battle machine with the 88 on it for the Germans, is the reload. The reload on that is insane. And I'm wondering, because of the open top nature that you can set it, that the reload of this machine once again should be great. So once again, when it starts firing shots, if you can't stop it quickly, it could easily murder many, many tanks. Another thing is it's quite key for a set of loaders, or for a loader, to have as much space as possible. So the question is, with this machine, if it is open topped, will it have less of a reload speed than if it is closed? All of these factors have to be thought about, and to be honest, I don't see any confirmation if that is the case or not. And on top of this as well, it's obviously going to be very, very, very bad against planes. A lot of people have praised stuff like the 88s for their AA capabilities, especially when it comes to ships. And I would agree with you. When you have more than 188, and when you have a decent fire rate, the anti-air component of it can do really well. The problem is when you have one of them and you are concentrating on killing ground forces and also concentrating on killing air forces, that doesn't really work so well. Especially if you are not open top like this. Now, what is looking pretty good is we can see two two areas where people can sit when it comes to their actual crew. So even if you get strafed on the back here, you should still have two crew in the hull, which can bring you back to life. Even though these are mounted upwards, I've got a feeling that the crew is going to be mounted down, just because of the fact that these are the the mirrors where you look up and then across. I can't remember their name, but they were popularized in World War One. A very interesting way of working. Basically, the way that they used to do periscopes back in the day, which where you look at one mirror, which looks at another mirror, which are at 45 degrees. So therefore, you can look above yourself and across, which I think is pretty cool. Now, this is the 88mm Flak 41. So this means that the other version of this machine, with the other version of the 88, could easily come to the easily come to the game. And what is interesting is in the historical part, they say initial tests of the vehicles were performed throughout 1944. However, apart from tests producing mixed results, it was lacking interest that eventually led to the project's ultimate cancellation later that year. As a result, the VFW never left prototype stage, and only a single experimental vehicle was ever produced. So they're not really talking about the other one as well. They're also claiming this is a heavily modified Panzer IV chassis. I mean, sure, if you want, I would just call it its own independent chassis at this point. You know, the question is, when does a modification end, and when does an independent one spring up? Because this is so heavily modified, it is hardly like its predecessor. But the other prototype vehicle, as I've said, garnered itself another 88, and there was also a version which was kind of part of the same program, but that was on a Panzer IV chassis, and it had the quad 20mm on it. But that easily could be another gift vehicle, you know, in the same breadth as the Whirlwind, and the other 88 could easily be a tech tree vehicle. So as I said before, one of the lovely things about this, apart from the Merkava, is that all of these have really easy tech tree equivalents. You know, another version, a prototype version of the I-180 could come in. You could just put in the Project 122. This has, as I said, a different 88 brother. The HMS Tiger has two sister ships in the Tiger class. The Ju-388 has a bomber version. It even has another version when it comes to night fighting, which you could stick in. You probably couldn't stick in the reconnaissance one, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense, unless you wanted to put in a really cool idea. The Ju-388, which was the reconnaissance version, it actually has something really cool. It has front radar, and it also has back radar. So if you wanted to test the concept of having both sets of radar, you know, that could work really well. And so, you know, you could stick that in. The only one which struggles with this is the Merkava when it comes to, you know, standard tech tree equivalents, which is why it's so weird and wonderful to see it. But anyway, that is the VFW German Ballista. It's going to be another high-powered 88mm, which is going to be good in a lot of scenarios, but after the 5 or 10 minute mark, you're going to get killed by a plane because it's a rank 3 and planes are incredibly prevalent. And also, you will always have to be able to shoot first, otherwise you're going to get taken out very, very quickly. The only thing to me that is interesting to find out is the hull brake mechanic and how it's going to work with this vehicle. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Dyslexic Child, Moxie, Olo Brolo, Martinez, and Super Cacti for supporting me on Patreon.